Welcome once again to the Cow Report, and I'm your host Chuck Lee, and of course this is live from the beautiful L.E. Phillips Memorial Library. As you've probably heard, the library is going into a remodeling program here pretty soon, so we'll be moving out and be going over to the old tire factory over there. You know where it's at, up the road there, up the hill. So anyway, Fred, if you're watching at home, you ought to be down here. Your fans are missing you. So I'm going to tell you when Fred's show's on next, so maybe that'll get him up out of bed and get him back in gear. Maybe you want to write him letters or something. His phone number is in the phone book and his address, and you can write him some letters and say, Fred, get up out of bed and get outside and get some fresh air and get back in the swing of things. He's kind of retired from things right now, and at his age he doesn't need to be retiring. All right, let's see here now. The way it looks, today is, of all days, the 6th of February. So that's tonight at 9 o'clock. The Cow Report's on, all right? Tuesday night, I don't see anything here. Wednesday, nothing much. Thursday, let me see now, Thursday. Common Man's on at 6 o'clock, you might want to watch that. Let's see, what else here? Friday, I don't see much. Monday, 2 o'clock, the Cow Report. Tuesday, the 14th, is nothing much. Okay, February 15th, the Common Man's on again at 11 o'clock. You might be interested in that. Thursday, the 16th. Fred, I still haven't run into your show here. I think you're still on. Friday, the 17th. Friday, the 17th. You're not on there either, Fred. You might want to call in, Fred, if you have anything to talk about. Monday, the 20th. Cow Report's on again at 9 o'clock. And let's see here. 21st. The 21st. I don't see you on there either, Fred. 22nd. I don't see either, Fred. Not on the 23rd either, Fred. Neither the 24th, nor the 27th. The Cow Report's on at 2. Well, I guess you're not on anymore, Fred, because there's nothing on here at all for February. So you need to have that checked out. All right, well, this is live, so we are taking calls tonight. We have a limited program, so tonight we're just going to have a program where if there's any subject out there that you're interested in that you don't know the answer to, you can call in and I'll answer it for you, because I know a little bit about everything and a lot about some things. So if there's something that you've been wondering about, anything from the universe to the local Republican Party or politics or what's going on in Washington, you can just call in, because I can probably answer it for you. So in the meantime, we'll just wait then for those calls. Of course, you can see the latest necklace that I bought on my last trip, and I'm sure you'll like that. See here, these things are just selling like crazy out on the West Coast. And they're really pretty snazzy. You walk down the street with one of those, and I guarantee you'll get noticed. Really hot right now, only $19.95. You can wear those instead of a tie. All right. Well, Roy Rogers Hoff just walked in. Now, Roy, what's the deal on that Common Man and that car thing over there? And is that all straightened out now?
No, the court case been canceled, they settled out of court.
So Common better watch what he's saying or he could get sued, or is
So
it?
the woman did receive money for her death of her husband and her father. How much money, they won't tell you.
So Common doesn't have anything to bellyache anymore about.
Not unless they close the racetrack down because they have to raise the prices to cover the insurance loss.
Oh, all
Then
right.
they complain.
Okay, and until then, though, there's no reason for him to be on the air anymore then, is there?
No, he'll find something to talk about.
Okay. Just checking. So there you are, Common. I guess you're kind of out of business till there's another wreck. Well, thank you. That was Roy Rogers Hoff, of course. He's been with me now, what, 20, 25 years, something like that. So I think we will check our phones tonight here and see how things are going out there. Of course, now, in case you haven't noticed, G. Gordon Liddy's on that AM radio station in town now, so they got two fairly conservative. Well, G. Gordon's a lot more conservative than Rush Limbaugh. Limbaugh is kind of a pseudo-conservative, but G. Gordon is the real thing. Anybody that can take a cigarette lighter and light it and hold his hand over it and not even flinch, that's a real conservative. So anyway, he's on Way Radio now. I think Rush is still on. Somebody was saying that Rush wasn't on today at 1, but maybe he's been bumped back to 10 to 1 or something like that. But maybe somebody from Way Radio can call in and give the new schedule over there, because G. Gordon's got a lot to say. He was formerly with the FBI or CIA, one of those, but he was in the Watergate scandal and went to prison for something like 5 years because he wouldn't talk. And now he does his own radio show out of Washington D.C. and it's going across the nation now. And he was one of the people that broke the story about Vince Foster and that supposedly having that gun and the suicide. And there's evidently a witness that totally his information on the suicide is totally different than what the Park Police and the official line is coming out of the White House. And of course, we haven't seen the end of that Whitewater hearing. That stuff's been put on the back burner while they try and get this contract with America straightened out and get that out there. And of course, a lot of that's getting wishy-washy and slippery, and a lot of that's slipping and sliding around now. So I don't know how much of that is going to get actually pushed through now, like the balanced budget amendment. Boy, I'm sure you're all happy about that. Well, you're not even going to see that probably for 7 years. About the year 2002 is the deadline for getting that passed. So they've got 7 years now to push that off and make the deficit bigger in the next 7 years. As a matter of fact, Clinton's new budget, something like $200 billion added to the deficit coming up here for the next budget for the 12-month period. So go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Chuck.
Yeah.
I've been on hold so long I almost forgot what I was going to ask you. But I just tuned in, and what do you think of the $4 million addition to the public library? Can you have some discussion on that?
Yes, I can. I'm glad you asked that question. And of course, you know, we've done our part down here by when we set up the taco stand and started grinding our own hamburger down here, and we're looking at adding on pork here before we get kicked out of the basement here. But we have done our part to try and keep this place afloat. But it's like any other budget. As long as they're spending more than there's coming in, it's kind of like your checkbook. When you get down to the bottom there and it says zero, can you keep writing checks past that zero into the negative column?
Well, if I got any left in my account or in my book, I guess I can, but you know what happens.
Right. Well, you know, the governments, they continue to do that. Many, many years ago, they went beyond the 0 point into the negative. Something like 56 out of the last 60 federal budgets have been that way. But on the library level now, of course, the bottom line is they want to go to. They're not going to have enough money to do it on their own, so it kind of looks like it's going to come out of the taxpayer's pocket. Which means that with these new assessments that have been levied by the city of Eau Claire, they're going to start boosting your taxes, and that's going to come out of the city hall there. From Mark Lewis, who claims he's created 6,000 jobs in the last 2 years. I don't think Mark Lewis has created anything except some big horn to to tout himself. Other than that, he hasn't created any jobs. The people that created the jobs are the ones that took the risk and opened the factories and the other businesses. But he's claiming that he created those 6,000 jobs in Eau Claire. I might add you, there are a lot of them are low-paying jobs.
Another question. Have you ever thought of running for city council?
Well, unfortunately, I can't. I can run for president, United States Senator, U.S. Congress. I can be appointed to ambassadorships anywhere in the world, but I can't run for things locally like dog catcher or city council or county board. Unfortunately, because of marijuana conviction, the way the laws are in the state of Wisconsin, you can't do that. But the state of Wisconsin doesn't cover the federal statutes on running for Congress, or Senate, so I could run for those, but not for a state office.
Oh, well, then you must have been one that inhaled. A little humor on the side here.
Yes, I inhaled, and you know, as a matter of fact, I've got that little blurb that Clinton said back during the 92 elections. And he says, I smoked a time or two, and I didn't like it, I didn't inhale, and I didn't try it again. So he admits that he smoked it more than once, but he's saying now that he didn't inhale, or he did say then that he didn't inhale, and he didn't like it, and he didn't try it again.
Well, thank you, Chuck.
Yeah.
And you keep us informed on this library issue.
Well, what do you think about it?
I don't think the city can afford it.
And does it look like to you that the city's going to end up being the one that's on the hook for the extras?
Definitely. The city is, we're losing jobs in the city of Eau Claire. We're going to be losing service. But then we got, on the other hand, we can spend millions of dollars. Sometimes I think the council down there is throwing rubber darts at a dartboard. They should either sharpen their darts up or stop playing that game, because we can't be broke one day and then have $4 million the next day to spend.
Yeah, I know Mark Lewis came out with his State of the City address, and you know, he's not for a mayor in Eau Claire, but he wants to act like one. We don't have a mayor because of the 551 and all that stuff, but he tries to pretend like he's the chief executive officer or whatever, and Don Norrell will just sit there and let him do that. Don Norrell is basically the city manager, and Mark Lewis is the president. But anyway, when the assessments were done in Eau Claire, a lot of people got these great big new assessments, but the city was careful not to raise their taxes this time. But now, all these big fat assessments are sitting there. It's like a big piece of chocolate candy underneath a Christmas tree, and that city council is going to go for that eventually. Then they're going to start digging into that. They're going to start chipping away at that, and your taxes are going to go a lot higher than what they are now.
I agree with you. Well, thank you, Chuck.
Yeah, okay.
I'll keep listening here.
Okay, thanks. Now also, you think about it, this unfunded mandates that the federal government is talking about, and how they're not going to force the states to they're not going to send laws back to the states that force the states to raise money for something new that came from the federal government. So if you think about it, though, this is going to give more power to state and local and city governments. Now, if you get a bunch of big spending liberals on the city government, they start getting these multi-million-dollar block grants. You know, that money originally comes from the taxpayers. And if it comes back to the cities and they just blow it on crazy schemes and civic centers that are too small and other nutty schemes that somebody thinks up in the middle of the night and thinks it's a great idea because they got a lot of surplus money going around, then you'll see a bigger mess than what the federal government's got. You'll see thousands of local governments overspending. Right now they're not overspending because the federal government is eating up all of the revenues. But if they start funneling that back to the states, and then the states are not careful with where they send it, you can see all kinds of crazy spending going on. They might actually do what one guy suggested and bulldoze the downtown area and make a jet landing strip there so they can bring in the big 747s and have them land right down here on Barstow in this area here. They'll just level that whole area down there. So you got to watch it. If they get too much money, they might do something like that. So we'll take another call here. Go ahead, caller, on the air.
Yes. If elected to or appointed to government positions, what are your views on legalization of marijuana and why?
What do you mean, why?
Well, do you have an opinion?
Well, let me get your opinion first, and then I'll give you mine.
Well, my opinion is that marijuana isn't any worse, if not, it's not as worse as drinking.
Yeah.
And I think it should be legal.
What about when you say you smoke some real potent Colombian and you hop in your car and go out and wreck it?
Well, let's say you have too many drinks and you hop in your car and you go out and wreck it.
So you think there should be some laws against driving under the influence?
Well, sure.
All right. Well, here's what I think about marijuana. I think the pendulum has swung too far in the opposite direction now. I've said this before, and I'm thankful that I no longer smoke marijuana or use it or have anything to do with it, because when I say this, it makes the law enforcement authorities mad. But it is very easy, and it's easy to get get a write-up in the newspaper when you bust somebody for marijuana. Like in last week's paper, you saw the headlines where it said, "Drug ring broken at South Junior High," or middle school, whatever they call it now. I mean, we got some kids here that were handing out a couple grams back and forth of marijuana, which is a very minute amount of marijuana. Now, if they don't handle that situation right, them kids, because they're experimenting and they're at that age, those kids' lives could be ruined for the rest of their lives, having that on their record or whatever. So the pendulum has actually swung too far in the direction of law enforcement. We have to realize that there's three drugs that are basically the entrance drugs into the drug culture by the young, and those are alcohol, cigarettes, and marijuana. They're the three easiest ones to get a hold of. Now, of those three, alcohol does probably the most damage, or cigarettes, either one of them. They both do more damage than the marijuana does. Now, the alcohol, a lot of people get killed from car wrecks and shooting their friends when they're drunk, and beating up their wives, and their wives beating up their husbands, and everyone knows what a disaster alcohol has been. As a matter of fact, the United States at one time tried to make it illegal, and we saw the Al Capones and the Kennedys and those smuggle in the drugs, and people like the Kennedys made millions, but it didn't stop drinking. People just went behind closed doors and did it. Well, that's the situation we have with marijuana right now. Now, you've got two drugs that are legalized now that are killing thousands of people. Cigarettes are killing upwards of 400,000 a year. Alcohol, if you included all the gunshots and the murders and the drunken driving, it'd probably get up close to 100,000 a year.
Where does marijuana fit in?
Well, marijuana, you'd probably see, probably the biggest place you see marijuana deaths is the fight over smuggling it into the country, drug dealers shooting each other and killing each other over the actual turf and transactions, and people down on the end where it's grown being murdered. You know, other people move in and take over their fields and kill them. And of course, on this end, you see people trying to grow it domestically, and the law enforcement coming in and having shootouts, people getting killed or sent to prison or whatever. So that's where you're seeing most of your harm there. There is some physical problems with marijuana. You can't say that it's you're off the hook with marijuana, because there are a lot of problems with it, and it can cause problems with your lungs. But they have to, the law enforcement, like I say, it's easy for them to have a big marijuana raid and bust somebody with an ounce of marijuana. And to people that don't know much about marijuana, they read that and say, "Oh, isn't it wonderful how our law enforcement are taking care of the drug problem in this country?" And at the same time, maybe the next apartment over, there's some guy shooting up heroin and selling it out of that apartment. And there might be a guy down the hallway selling crack cocaine. But boy, we're getting that marijuana off the streets. And isn't it wonderful how the law enforcement have cleaned up the drug problem in the Eau Claire area?
And what about how they do in some countries in Europe where they can walk into a drugstore or pharmacy and buy heroin.
So that's not too good of a deal.
And why? If the problems are out in the open, there's no gang fighting over drugs.
Mhm. Well, if you legalize, well, heroin is, like you say, it's tolerated more in places like England. You just have a lot of heroin addicts, so you haven't really solved any problem. All you've done is introduce the government into the equation, and they become the drug dealer instead of a dealer on the street. You still got people that are addicted to the heroin, and it's causing a lot of problems in their life. I wouldn't legalize marijuana, but on the other hand, there's no use to be making a federal case out of it. And
Are you saying that you wouldn't legalize marijuana because you're a conservative?
well, it doesn't matter whether you're liberal or conservative. Marijuana is marijuana. It's always been the same thing. It's always been marijuana. There's conservatives smoke it, liberals, moderates. It's just that there are some physical problems with it, and it does cause problems with young people that smoke it with their motor skills and
Maybe
physical.
they should have an age limit on it, like drinking,
Mhm.
alcohol.
Maybe they would, like I say, I wouldn't go for a total legalization because we've got 2 nasty drugs that are legalized now, and thousands of people are dying because of it. I'm not saying that people will, I'm not saying less people will die if you legalize marijuana, but we've got 2 problems now that we're not solving. Why shotgun marijuana all over the country and allow that to be added to the other 2 drugs that are already causing so many problems, plus the plethora of other drugs that are still illegal that are more dangerous than marijuana. They're just, you know, I would say though that they have swung too far back to punishing people for marijuana when it's the least of the drugs to be worried about. When you got people killing each other, drive-by shootings over crack cocaine, and people dying of heroin. We got a heroin epidemic that's most of it's coming from former Soviet Union states that are getting it from places like Pakistan and Afghanistan, smuggling it through Europe and dumping it on the American market, and the stuff is so pure that people are falling over dead after they inject it. It's because the heroin addicts in the United States are used to a weaker form of it, and now they're getting 80–90% pure stuff, and it's just it's causing some major problems.
Okay, going back to saying marijuana is the least drug to worry about, so where does alcohol fit in? I mean, how can you compare that? Would you say have another prohibition?
No, maybe maybe people should have prescriptions for alcohol. Maybe people should, if they're going to be alcoholics, maybe they shouldn't, maybe they should get it with a prescription and they shouldn't be licensed to drive at all.
Maybe, or are you saying for sure? I mean, that's what you would want.
Well, you know, we're in one of the booze states in the United States. Wisconsin is one of the booze states. We produce a lot of alcohol here, so if I was running for office, I'd be slitting my own throat by saying that we should outlaw alcohol again. Since I'm not running for office, I still don't think that I would say that, but like I'm saying now, alcohol is legal. The alcohol industry controls a lot of politicians, just like the cigarette industry controls a lot of politicians. So does the alcohol, through groups like the Tavern League, through lobbyists like Miller Brewing and Budweiser, all the big ones. They have high-priced lobbyists in Madison and in Washington that lobby to make sure that there's the least amount of restrictions on alcohol that are possible. And if it were possible, they would try and lower the drinking age to 15 or 16 just to appease the big companies so that they can make bigger profits. So I am not for the alcohol companies, whether it's Lion and Kugel or Miller Lite or any of them. I don't personally drink, but I have drank in the past, and alcohol is a nasty drug. It's a poison, And if you're a college student out at the university, one of your own has died from alcohol poisoning. He drank himself to death the night of his birthday. And that's just an example of what alcohol can do for you. Now, I smoked marijuana for 20 years, and I don't recall anyone ever dying from an overdose of marijuana. But I know people die from overdoses of heroin and overdoses of alcohol.
Would you say that the THC levels have risen drastically from, let's say, the 60s?
Yeah, quite a bit. Back in the 60s, most of the marijuana in the United States was either homegrown or Mexican. And then the Colombian stuff started flooding in the early 70s, and that significantly increased the THC content. Plus, the breeding of those seeds with the domestic seeds, it increased the domestic THC content went up too during those years.
Well, I just think that marijuana should be legalized for other reasons besides hemp could be an important part of our country with paper products, and besides the fact that alcohol is more of a problem, I just think that marijuana is going to have to be legalized probably in the future.
So I think you've called before about the paper products. What is this with paper products and hemp anyway?
The fact that hemp is used in paper products and that growing it will be legal.
Well, there's enough wild hemp growing between here and Kansas now to get all the paper products you want.
Well, I just don't think marijuana is a problem as much as drinking and driving and all the other drugs. And for you to say that it is the least of our worries, then go and say one thing about drinking and driving and alcohol use. I just don't see how you can say that not to have another prohibition, but marijuana, keep it illegal.
Well, I'm just saying we don't need three drugs out there legal at the same time when we got so many problems with two being legal now.
Okay, well, that's all I have.
Maybe if you can lobby the tobacco companies into quitting growing the tobacco and outlaw tobacco, then there might be room to legalize marijuana.
And put taxes on it.
Well, there is a tax already on marijuana. You get caught growing it without the tax stamp, and I think that's a federal offense.
And there's a stamp that you can get.
A what?
The stamp?
Yeah, the federal tax stamp. Without that, and you're caught growing it or in possession, they can charge you with cultivation without the tax stamp.
Well,
But marijuana is it's an intriguing subject. It's an easy thing to make the law enforcement look glamorous at times. When they're hurting for a bust, they can always go out and bust 5 or 10 marijuana users and bust them with a few grams and hit the papers and say they've cracked a ring. But it's not impressive to me. Maybe it is to people that are not in the know, but there's a lot more serious drugs out there than marijuana that are that people are caught up in, and that's ruining their lives, like namely cocaine. And as you've seen with State Representative Dave Plumbaum, how it messed up his life, he's dealing with it now and admitting that he had a problem with it, but there are some serious, dangerous drugs out there, and they're a lot more dangerous than marijuana.
yep, that's right. Maybe I should just tell the law enforcement to shove it up their butts.
Well, lobby them to get on with nailing the heroin and the cocaine and the amphetamines that the motorcycle gangs make. And see, when you go up against a motorcycle gang, you're going up against some heavy artillery. You go up against crack cocaine, you're going up against the Crips and the Bloods and a lot, 20, 30 other gangs, thousands of gangs actually if you go to California. Then you're talking about doing warfare, but it's easy to bust a 14, 15-year-old kid with marijuana because, you know, what kind of hassle are you going to get for doing that?
So what do you recommend about the drug situation in the United States?
Well, I campaigned on the promise that we would close down the borders, shut off all the drugs coming in, all the illegal aliens coming in that are bringing drugs sometimes. They smuggle them inside their bodies. close down the borders and start dealing with the problem of the drugs that are already in the country. Start dealing with it from that angle. But as long as this,
How are you going to deal with them?
well, if you stop the flow, then you're not going to have as many people that are experimenting or addicted. Usually, when people can't get their supply of that, they'll stop using it because there's none there to get. But as long as it's freely available, like the price of cocaine goes down because there's such a glut of it in the country. The price of heroin goes down and gets purer because there's a glut. Now, if there wasn't a glut of heroin in the country, the heroin would be cut drastically. It'd be 20, 30% pure instead of 80 or 90. So when there's 80 or 90% pure heroin on the streets, that tells you that there's a glut of heroin in the country. So as long as the stuff is being pumped in here and ruining the youth and the rest, and just ruining the lives of millions of people, then you can't solve the problem. So you got to cut off the flow. If we can't destroy where it comes from, then we can stop it at the borders.
How would you destroy where it comes from when a lot of marijuana is grown in homes?
Well,
Hydroponics.
I wasn't specifically talking about marijuana. I was talking.
Well, it is a drug problem, you said.
Yeah. Well, I was talking about more specifically on the borders of stopping the flow of heroin and cocaine. That's the two major illegal drugs that are coming into this
Well,
country.
it doesn't flow freely, so obviously it's not stopped now. How do you recommend we stop it?
It flows freely because in some instances it flows right through in the briefcases of foreign diplomats because they can't be searched. And there has been a few cases in the past where they have been caught, but it's not easy to because you can't search them, so they can bring, 10, 20, 30 pounds right in with their luggage and carry it right through, and no one's going to stop them. But you have to tie up the sea, the ports, the airports, the places where people are coming into the country. That's where people come in, the drugs come in, and also where the goods come in. Yeah, and I've been through I went to Mexico and came back, where you have to stop in Texas and they search everything and they search all the luggage that comes in. It's no big deal. We got thousands of troops that are being let out of the military right now because they've got nothing to do. We're downsizing our military right now. Those military, instead of putting them on the unemployment line, we could be putting them on the borders, shutting down the hardcore drug traffic. The reason we're not doing that is because you have politicians and you have border guards and you have the DEA and you have agents that are dirty. In other words, they're involved in it. Now, from time to time, you'll hear about an elected official or a judge or a county sheriff that gets nailed for trafficking drugs. But that can all be stopped if they get serious about closing the borders and stopping the two main things that are hurting this country, and that's illegal aliens and the drug trafficking.
Well, it sounds like that will cost a lot of money to...
Not really. We're spending billions of dollars for troops all over the world now. We've got troops in over 100 countries, last time I read in an article in Newsweek. Why do we have American troops in 100 countries? Since when were we the cops of the world? And what's wrong with other countries like France and England and Germany taking up their part? And why does America have to have troops in 100 countries? Let's worry about America and keeping it strong. If we lose this, if this country collapses from within, what's the difference if we got troops in 100 countries? It's not going to help us.
So you weren't a big supporter of Desert Storm?
Well, that was something that Clinton did. I think there's a lot more to that than was ever revealed.
Wasn't that Bush?
Bush. There was political implications with that. There was a perceived fear that the spigot on the oil faucet was going to be shut off, and that we were going to lose 20 or 30% of the oil in the world if we didn't stop Iraq from what they were doing.
Well, that's probably since when we were the police of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what keeps us strong and a strong country.
Well, in that case, we used other troops, so there was, 40, 50 different nations involved in that. That was more of a United Nations deal than just an American deal. Plus, we had Arab nations that sided with us in that deal, too, because they saw that Saddam Hussein couldn't be controlled, and that he had visions of reinstalling the Persian Empire there in the Middle East, and so he needed to be contained. It's still a powder keg over there between Iraq and Iran and some of those nations over there. Eventually, the Iraqi oil is going to go back online, which means that money will be flowing in there again, and we'll probably see problems with him again. But that was more of a kind of a United Nations operation.
Well,
but anyway,
the United States government would have done what they planned on doing, like killing Saddam Hussein. Do you think the problem would have been solved then?
well, it maybe if they'd went all the way to the capital, Baghdad, when they had the chance. We had the armor in there. We could have been in the United States, and the other allies could have been in Baghdad within a few hours, but Schwarzkopf didn't have the stomach for any more killings, so they stopped it where they did. And it left the bulk of Hussein's troops intact for the slaughter of the Kurds in the north and some of the other Muslim party in the south is being systematically eliminated by Hussein now, because we didn't eliminate his guards. So they're in there killing people in southern Iraq right now. So it's a big world, a lot of problems, but I better go on to another call because people are waiting, time is short, and things of that nature. So thanks a lot.
Thank you for your time.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Well, there's another call out there. Well, we were hoping that Fred would call in because you know how Fred is. You got to keep on him to get him here. No, we got a show coming up in the future. I think we're going to have, mention a couple people that are going to be on in the future. We're going to have a guy named Byron Hawkins come on. What Byron does, he does two things. Actually, he has three jobs, but one of his jobs is he searches for heirs. In other words, for people that have money coming, and he'll go to courthouses and whatever and track them down to help them get money that they have coming, heirs to estates. And then he also is involved in a group that brings in school-age kids from foreign countries to spend time in the United States and go to schools in the United States. And he also has a multi-level marketing program that he's doing well in. So Byron will be on, I think, next week or the week after that. Also, we're going to have the head of the Downtown Eau Claire Main Street Association. I think his name is Jim Shue, and he's over at the City Hall tonight. They're talking about the planning, the 20-year plan for the downtown Eau Claire area. So we'll be able to ask him questions about, well, I'm more interested in how he's helped turn around the downtown area. If you drove through the downtown lately, you notice that those empty shops are starting to fill up. The Eau Claire downtown area is coming back to life. Between the post office and the YMCA, that area in there it's starting to blossom again. And so we'll find out how he did it and what the future is and how the Main Street Association will tie in with this 20-year plan that the city is developing. And maybe we'll find out a little bit about what's coming up also with the arena that seems to be coming back on the front burner again. And there's talk that it might be over around the post office area or down by the old Civic Center area. So that'll be interesting too. So that's a couple of the shows coming up, and we're still negotiating with Dave Plombaum. He was supposed to be on once, and his grandmother died. Another time he had to go to Madison on Monday night because his ride was going down there, and he has had limited access to a vehicle because of his license being suspended and all that. I don't know if he's got it back yet or not, but hopefully after things cool down and he's back in the groove down there in Madison, and we can get him in here on a Monday night or maybe a Monday afternoon, we'll do that. Okay, go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Yeah, Chuck?
Yeah.
I had just a couple questions to ask you. They spend all this money, taxpayers' money on building on the courthouse.
Yeah.
And I really think they should spend a little bit of money in cleaning the place up inside of it, like in lockup parts.
Why, you mean in the jail part?
Yeah.
What's wrong with the jail part?
It's just real filthy. The showers, paint peeling, just really grody. You know, you take a shower, a couple days later, you'd have athlete's foot. You know, I really think they should spend a little bit of money cleaning the place up. You know, instead of spending all this taxpayers' money on things that we don't need in this town and stuff that we need.
Well, that jail there is fairly new. They just had an open house there not too many years ago for the new wing. Don't they have a nice big open area there now where it's kind of where you can go during the day?
Not in the lockup parts. You know, I was about 2 weeks ago. I had been in lockup, and I'm a fairly clean person and stuff. You know, so when I take a shower, I usually like to take a shower in a clean shower. You know, and I don't want it to look. You know, it's bad enough you're stuck in jail and you have to, you know, be there, but you have to take a shower in filth. You know, I really think they should clean that place up, paint it, you know, make it, you know, people do have to stay there, you know. You know, I really think they should spend a little bit of taxpayers' money cleaning that dang place up, or they condemn it. You know, the state owns the dang place. They should really get down on, you know.
Well, they're not going to condemn it. It's the Western Wisconsin Regional Detention Center, so it's a moneymaker for the county.
Yeah, but
So
you know,
they're not going to condemn it, but what you can do is, since you're not in there now, maybe you are in there calling from over there now, but
no, I'm not in there right now.
well, what you can do is you can file a complaint with the State
Yeah,
Department.
but you can't fight the state.
You can file a legitimate complaint with the State Department of Health or the county health department, and if they have a legitimate complaint, they do have to investigate. They just can't brush you off. When they get a complaint, they've got to investigate it. That's their job, especially on the county level. Matter of fact, that reminds me, when the way that the county went into these dirty bookstores, they went in there because of the filth. The county health department, they made them take the doors off there, put some lighting in them, in these booths, and so that I mean, it was getting really filthy in them places, but it was the county health department that went in there and did it solely on a health basis. Now,
Yeah, but you know, they should know about these things. You know, there's people sitting in jail and who do complain about it, but you tell a jailer, where does it go to the, you know, it just stays in the jailer's ear and it don't go any other farther than the jailer's ear. You know, ain't no one's gonna do nothing about it.
how big is the jail? How many?
You know, there's, I don't know. I've only been at a couple parts of the blocks and stuff, but
Was it crowded?
it's very crowded. You know, I can understand why they're building on and stuff, but I really think they should spend a little bit of money. You know, that, you know, the state does have money. You know, the taxpayers and stuff. They really should get in there and clean it up. You know, the paint down there is beyond. You know,
No.
They should get in there and paint it.
Now,
And,
by crowded, were there people sleeping on the floor or what?
yes, you know, both times I was down there, I slept on the floor.
Where at? I mean, just underneath somebody else's bunk or what?
No, out in the block. You know, and everybody else sleeps in their cells.
I mean, they're so crowded, they're putting you out in the block area?
Oh, you got your own little cell block where you got your television.
Yeah,
Your block is like your living room, you know.
yeah. And they're putting people out there to sleep.
Oh yeah, it's
See, that might not be legal for them to be doing that. I know in a group home situation, you can't overfill a
but
group.
it's pretty bad, you know.
I know there's strict rules on if you're licensed for a 15-bed group home, you can only put 15 people. You can't bump it up, and it might be the same with jails. If they're licensed to hold 100 people and they got 120 in there, then they're violating the laws, and a judge can put a restraining order on them to clean it up and to reduce their population.
Yeah, like you have eight cells, you know, and plus you have your block, and they'll have like 8 people sleeping on the floor besides for the 8 people that are in their cells, you know. That's how crowded they are.
So they're single cells, single man cells?
Yeah.
Well, I think a certain part of that jail is for detention for juveniles too, so that's probably eating up some of the space as more juveniles come into the system too. But like I've said many times in this program, you can build a jail on every street corner in the nation, and until you change people from within, it's not going to change people on the outside to build jails. All it is, it just turns into, it replaces the regular education system and puts them in a closed environment where they learn a new education. But
Yeah.
I guarantee you people coming out of jail are getting a certain education.
But you know, the point is there's people getting sick down there just because of it, you know.
What kind of,
It's just, you know,
well, why don't they have a program where the inmates clean the place up?
it's because it's union. That when I was down there, some of the people that I was in the same block with, they had asked why this place wasn't cleaned up. It's because they can't clean it up because the union has to come in there and clean it up. And for a union to come in and clean it up, it has to be empty.
Oh, well, how bad is it getting there?
Oh, it's beyond, you know, it's, like I said, 6 to 8 people be sleeping on the floor in each block. And, you know, they built that new part on there and stuff, you know, and that new part is, you know, pretty big and stuff, you know.
I remember going through looking that over just for the open house, and it looked like a fairly modern, well, it had to be modern, it was brand new, but
Yeah, but, you know, that's not, you don't get into, you know, the newer parts you can just see. But, you know, if you get into the real, like the South Block parts and stuff, you know, you get back in there into the blocks, and you look inside where people are in there staying and stuff, you know, because I don't think they show that off or nothing. But you get in there and you look in there and stuff, it just, you know, there's not that much writing on the wall, you know, but the paint is so old, you know, it's flaking.
hmm.
And it's, you know, they should be have something done, you know, to have something, you know, if they have union has to do it, they should get some people in there to do it, you know.
Well, were you in there on Hubler, or were you able to get out, or were you in there
I wasn't locked up.
24 hours a day?
Yep.
So what do you do in there? What goes on in there during 24 hours?
Sit there, watch TV, sleep, read books.
There's no,
Oh, you get to, every once in a while, you get to go to the gym, play basketball.
what gym?
Yeah, they have I don't know, it's like one basketball hoop gym. It's not very big.
It's right inside there.
And plus they have like a little rec room where they have just one big weight set, you know, that has like little 4 things on it, like leg thing and one curling thing, and it's all connected, and then a ping pong table, you know, with no paddles, no balls. You know,
So how long do you get to stay in there a day?
approximately half an hour
Out of the 24 hours, and the rest of the time you're in your cell or in
in your cell block.
your cell block? And in the cell block there's what, TV and
A TV.
tables
And the
to,
TVs are behind bars, so it's hard to watch the TV. You know, there's no chairs besides what, you know, you sit on. What you sit on is what you eat on, watch TV on, you know, read your books on, besides if you go lay down in your bunks or whatnot, you know.
hmm.
You know, there's education down there and stuff, but,
So what was the longest sentence that there was a person down there? What was their longest
well,
sentence?
there's people down there for a year, 9 months, 6 months. It goes on beyond that, you know.
And they're sitting in there doing nothing other than
We're
reading.
getting people from prisons and stuff and putting them in there, you know. You know, people who want to get their GEDs, they're putting them in the county jails, you know, straight from prison.
Are you allowed to take classes or anything?
But yeah, they have classes, but they're not every day.
Uh,
And they have like church and stuff like that, but that's not every day either, you know. It's very rarely you get out of your cell block.
so it's not a country club like some people say.
No, you hear people complain all the time about not being able to move around, get any exercise, and you know that's very unhealthy. And I think, you know, the fresh air would be nice. You know, they should build something on top of that place. Spend a little taxpayers' money on building something like big fences, even, you know, so no one can get out. So they at least can get out, you know, have a cigarette, you know, if they want, or run around, play basketball outside, and get a little bit of fresh air. You know, there's people in there. You get bloody noses. When I was down there just for a week, I had 2 bloody noses, and that's how dry it is in that place.
Mhm.
Not only that, I got athlete's foot from being in there. Well,
Huh.
I mean, there's, like I said, the showers are beyond. They're gross. You know, you hear people complain about it, but there's nothing they can do because all the phone calls that come out of that place are collect. You know, for when you call somebody, they have to accept your call. So there's nothing really you can do besides tell the jailer, and the
Oh.
jailers really don't care because they're not the ones stuck in the dang place.
I thought the inmates, some of the trustees cleaned up the place.
Oh no,
You
it's
see
like,
them clean them up. You see them cleaning up the courtroom area and stuff, don't they?
oh yeah, that's plenty clean. You know, a king can live in there. You get up to the lockup parts, you know, they don't care about you. They treat you like dirt, you know, just like you are in jail. You know, the prisons are more cleaner than what the county jails are. I've heard people wish they were in prison instead of being in county jails.
hmm. Well, you might want to take it up with the county health department and let them know that there's problems at least with the shower area. So how many people were in your cell block there?
Well, I was just in a little cell block. There was only 6 cells in my cell block, and they were all completely full. One wasn't full because it had a broken toilet.
Huh.
But you know,
Uh-huh.
it just they're just too lazy because they said they have to have a union come in there and fix it because it's all union.
Well, perhaps they need to get a hold of the union then and get them in there.
Yeah, but for them to get in there with union, the place has to be just about empty, you know, for them to work, so they can move other people to different cell blocks, so they can get people to get in there and to work. Like I already, you know, people say we'll paint it, you know,
Uh-huh.
just clean the place up a little bit, you know.
Well, I don't know. That'll have to be something maybe the county board can look at, since it is a county problem, that perhaps they can have the prisoners do that work. I know on the state level, we have a multimillionaire from Minnesota cutting a deal with Governor Thompson to put prisoners to work in the state prisons. So if they can do it in the state prisons, perhaps they can do it in the county prisons. It's better than just sitting around, but I'm sure it wouldn't take much at all to get some fungus killer and some tile cleaner and some bleach and stuff and kill that athlete's foot pretty quick. All they'd have to do is spray it in there every day to kill it. All it is a fungus.
You can only have certain kind of chemicals that are in there because they're worried about people endanger themselves, like with poisons and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The stuff that comes in there, you know, it's stuff that's not poisonous.
Mm-hmm.
Like some glass cleaners and stuff, you know, they use glass cleaners just to clean off the walls and stuff, you know, stuff that's not going to hurt you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, check into the health department. I call them up and ask them if they can do anything about it.
Okay, Chuck.
All right, thanks a lot.
Much.
Bye.
Bye.
Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
I'd like to ask you a few questions about agriculture and how it's been quite a problem in Wisconsin with corn.
What's wrong with the corn?
I don't know, everything, there was a drought and, like, a lot of it wasn't as much harvested as the farmers wanted.
When was this?
This year, or was it last year?
I think they had a bumper crop this year.
Oh, I see. Well, I was just wondering because I have a lot of relatives that are farmers and they were complaining a lot this year. I want to know if you knew anything about that since it's the cow report and all.
Well, with the corn situation, what they need to do...
I want to talk about corn.
Okay, thank you. Well, with the corn situation, what you have is, if they took that corn and made methanol out of it, or ethanol, whatever one they call it, anyway, they ferment the corn and they get alcohol. That alcohol can be mixed with gasoline and burned in your automobiles. Now, they need to have more factories like that, especially in the farm states where a lot of corn is grown, because it does two things. You can use the corn to make the alcohol, and then you can take the corn and feed it to the cattle afterwards. So it works out pretty good, and it helps keep the price of corn at a decent level for the farmers. So we'll take another call here. Go ahead, caller. Excuse me. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's the common man.
Oh, Common, are you still on the air?
Oh,
I thought this was my show.
Well, I'm on the air. Probably will be for quite a while yet.
I'll tell you,
First, thanks for all the nice promotion at the beginning of the show there.
Well, you just go ahead and talk for a minute. I gotta go get some water for my throat here, because we're kind of low on staff tonight, so I'll be right back. You just go ahead and tell the audience what you want to tell them.
Yeah, I'll do what I can here. I was talking about a little bit about the missing situation there that may or may not be completely ended, as the saying goes, I guess. Kind of interesting here. Good old city water. I noticed we got a little problem with one of the cameras there occasionally.
Yeah,
Oh, well.
This is public access, you know.
Good old once in a while, malfunctions, the way it goes. No, I was gonna have a little, for the fun of it here, among other things, a little stump star here, if you want to play it either way. If you want me to guess or I'll guess, either way here, doesn't make any difference. I got a couple of things here. So if you
Well, you can ask me one there, Common, and then we got to move on down the tracks.
Well, let's see. How about a couple of famous people who were born on this particular day?
Okay, I'm glad you asked that question, Common, because that is a question that's asked of a lot of people on a day like this. And first of all, at the top of my head, I can think of one right off the top of my head would be Ronald Reagan was born on this date. And there was one other guy that was born on this date 100 years ago, if I could think of his name, about 1895, but it'll come to me here in a minute. But Ronald Reagan's good enough to answer the question there. Go ahead, caller, you're on the air.
Okay, I got a couple of questions for you here. First of all, you know exactly what the balanced budget amendment is, how it's worded? Because I've looked and I cannot find exactly how it's worded. Do you know exactly what it's worded about?
Well, it's going to be like like having a checkbook, and you're going to have a balance in that checkbook, and you can't spend more than you got coming in.
Okay, how about that item veto that just was passed about the president?
Did they pass that today?
Well, no, I haven't passed it, but it's about you probably know what it's about. The president can veto anything.
Okay, we have the line item veto in Wisconsin, and one thing that it does is it allows, well, the governor, it allows the governor to take a pen and say there's what they call a line of pork in there. It says, we're going to spend $200,000 to name a bridge on the north side of Eau Claire, the Dave Z Memorial Bridge. It's going to cost us $200,000 to name that bridge. Well, that's going to stick out like a sore thumb. The governor's going to say, well, I'm just going to mark that out. So he'll mark that line out, and then that won't be in the bill when it's signed.
Do you think it'll pass?
It probably will, because the Democrats will be able to use it over the next 2 years, and it's something they've kind of resisted when the Republicans been in power, but now the Republicans are willing to do this when there's Democratic president. So I'm sure it'll pass. I don't know if it passed today or not.
Okay, one more quick thing. I've been trying all hour. One thing you can't let your callers do is let them sit on there for like 35 minutes, because like we've been trying from the beginning of the hour, and like that one. I'm not saying that her questions weren't.
Yeah.
But she like sat on there for like 20 minutes, and like I'm sure probably like 50 people are waiting to get on here to talk. And I don't know, just shorten them up or something. Okay.
All right.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. Bye. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Fuck off.
I'm gonna call.
Hi.
Hello.
What do you think about the BGA?
The BGH?
Yeah.
Well, you know, it's great for the big corporate farms, but because they can survive the price of milk going down the tubes. But the little farmers, the ones with the 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 head of cows they're milking, eventually it's going to get them, and they're going to have to go out of farming. And you're seeing all through Wisconsin, you're seeing farmers throw in the towel and hold auctions, and you'll see a lot of auctions again this spring and through the summer. Farmers are saying, I just can't cut it anymore. The milk prices are low. We've got Mexican milk and milk products that are going to be competing against us. We've got Canadian products that are going to be competing. Plus we got this BGH, which produces more milk and lowers creates a larger surplus of milk, which lowers the price. So it's best for everybody to produce less and keep the price up. And with BGH, you can't do that. The corporate farms will just keep pumping this stuff out because they can force out the small farmers that way and eventually capture a larger part of the market. So it's great for the corporate farmers, bad for the small farmers.
Do you think farm prices are going to go up or go down?
What prices?
My milk prices.
Milk prices are about 50, 60 cents lower than they were a year ago, so it's causing problems now. And that's on top of farmers continuing to get out of the business. So it's,
Do you think farmers deserve more money, or?
well, if you want to keep the family farmers in business, they have to have enough to survive. And with the competition and from the corporate farms and the foreign farms and the foreign farm producers, it's getting harder all the time to stay competitive and to stay on the farm. And the reason they're leaving the farm is because they're not making it financially. They're not making enough money to stay on the farm. So if you want to have family farms in this country, you got to make it worthwhile for them to be on those farms.
Okay, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you. Well, time went faster than we thought it would, and I want to thank you for watching the show again tonight, and we'll be back again next week right here on the Cow Report. I've been your host, Chuck Lee, and we want to thank Roy Rogers Hoff and all the other staff and Fred. Your public is waiting for you, so you better get back on here. We're sick of this. Thanks a lot. We'll see you next week. Adios.